Have you ever sat through your own daughter's wedding smiling while she stood on stage and called you the poor man who raised her and everyone laughed? What would you do if the child you gave everything to make you feel small in front of the world? What I did next changed everything. Before we jump in, I want to know where in the world are you right now and what time are you listening? Let me know in the comments. I sat in the last row, not because there wasn't room up front, but because I wanted distance. From there, I could see everything without being seen. Emily looked beautiful. The dress fit perfectly. Her chin lifted just enough when the photographer called her name. She'd practiced that look. I knew. She moved like someone used to being watched. The ceremony was held at a riverside resort outside Charleston, all trimmed hedges and polished tables. Guests circled each other with champagne and polite talk about houses and vacations. No one asked who I was. Maybe they assumed I was hired help. It didn't bother me until the speeches began. Emily took the mic, confident, glowing. She thanked the planner, the in-laws, her friends. Then her eyes brushed past me. And of course, my dad. The most patient man in the world. He didn't have much, but he always believed I'd have everything. A ripple of laughter moved through the crowd, soft, amused. She smiled, pleased with herself. I didn't move. She went on to toast her husband, and the music started again. Glasses clinked, people danced. I stayed seated, the coffee cooling in my hand, something pressing behind my ribs. It wasn't her words that hurt. It was the truth she thought they carried. To her, I was a background figure. A good man with little patient and quiet. That's how she told it. That's how I'd let her tell it. Silence had felt like love once. Maybe it had only erased me. When I finally stood, no one noticed. I walked past the tables, past the laughter, toward the water. The river moved steady and dull, catching bits of light. I stood there until my breath matched its pace. Then I turned and walked the gravel path toward the car park. The valet lights blurred behind me. My car waited under a flickering lamp. The road stretched ahead, empty and dull. I turned off the radio. The static had begun to sound dishonest. Wind slipped through the cracked window, a thin hiss that filled the car. Charleston faded behind. Each sign, each gas station looked the same. I kept both hands on the wheel, just driving. When I pulled into the driveway, the porch light was still on. I'd left it that way. The steps creaked, the screen door stuck a little, nothing had changed. Maybe that was the point. The invitation card sat by the salt shaker, seat 32, bride's father. I picked it up, stared at the print, then set it down carefully. The kitchen felt small, the fridge humming its old tune. I opened a beer, carried it to the couch, and sat where the cushion had molded to me years ago. The bottle stayed cold in my hand. Photos lined the shelf, Emily's graduation, her first bike a mountain trip long ago. Her mother took that one. I hadn't noticed how young we were. Now it looked like someone else's life. Memories came easy, selling the pickup for tuition dinners from gas stations, splitting one juice in half. Standing outside her dorm, pretending not to cry. All of it led here. Now she was someone's wife, calling me the man who didn't have much. Not cruelly, just truthfully, maybe. That's what hurt. I set the beer down. Time passed quietly. The phone rang. Laura? You home yet, yeah? How was it? It was fine. She paused. All right, just checking in? That was all. The screen dimmed, and I didn't move. Morning came without meaning to. Sunlight pushed through the blinds, a mower droned somewhere down the street. I dressed, drove to the cafe, and parked out front. Laura was setting out chairs. She nodded when she saw me, then went back. I followed. The place smelled of cinnamon and cleaning spray. We didn't talk at first. She brought coffee, sat across from me. How's your girl? She's married now. She nodded. No more questions. We talked about nothing: the roof leak, someone moving to Arizona, an old co-worker who'd died. Then she asked, "Do you still feel proud of what you've built?" The question caught me off guard. No one had ever asked that. I couldn't find an answer. She didn't wait for one. Got up to restock sugar and napkins. Everything kept moving. The phone rang a week later while I was fixing the back door hinge. Emily's name lit the screen. I wiped my hands on a rag and answered. "Dad?" She said, her tone brisk, like she was calling a contractor. "I've been thinking. Maybe it's time to sell the old house. You don't really need it anymore." I didn't respond. Emily paused, then filled the gap. "Mark and I could help with the sale. We know someone in real estate. You could use the money for something easier." "Maybe travel," I said quietly. "That's your mother's house." "Mom's gone." "Dad?" she replied, soft but clipped. "It's part of the family estate now. We should make it work for all of us." There was nothing left to add. She kept talking markets, interest rates, what made sense. I let her finish, then hung up. For a moment I stood there, phone still in my hand, something small and final giving way. Not anger, not heartbreak, just the faint snap of a thread. Later I walked by the river. The path wound past the ramp into a quiet park. An old couple sat tossing crumbs to pigeons, laughing about something only they understood. Her hand brushed his knee. He smiled at her patient, amused. Their laughter stayed with me as I walked on. I used to laugh like that with her mother. We once promised to raise a child who'd never forget where she came from. For a while, Emily was that child, thoughtful, gentle. Somewhere along the way, she learned how to speak like someone above listening. By the time I turned home, the sun had slipped low over the trees. My legs ached, but I kept walking. The quiet helped. Back in the room, I opened the safe behind the dresser. The combination came easy. Papers waited there, old pay stubs, savings, slips, investment notes. Nothing grand, just the quiet record of a life built piece by piece. People thought I'd retired early because of bad luck. Truth was, I'd just planned ahead. Every overtime shift, every weekend repair, each dollar saved small pieces that built a quiet kind of independence. I spread the papers across the kitchen table and began listing totals, account numbers, rough notes. Not to prove anything, just to remind myself who I'd been all along. The faint tick of the hallway clock kept time. Between its clicks, I could almost hear the factory again, the clang of tools, men calling out over the machines, someone laughing about lunch. Those sounds used to anchor me. I made coffee, drank, half kept sorting. By midnight, the handwriting on my notes blurred. I leaned back and noticed how still the house had become. Through the blinds, porch light from the neighbor's yard flickered weakly. Everything sat where it belonged, yet felt slightly hollow, like a room that had forgotten what it was for. I returned the papers to the safe and rested my hand on the metal. Order used to mean control. Now it felt more like a cage that kept life from spilling out. The hum of the refrigerator and the faint rush of traffic drifted through the dark, steady, distant, detached. At the switch I paused, then pressed it. The room fell dim except for one thin stripe of streetlight cutting across the wall. I lay down watching it until my eyes blurred. The phone rang while I was rinsing the coffee pot. Still early. The sun had barely cleared the trees. "Hey, Dad, it's Mark." His tone was smooth, all business. Wanted to check in about the house. "Emily and I think it's best to move forward soon. We've already talked to a realtor." I held the phone away for a second, looked out the kitchen window. The yard needed mowing. "I'm not ready to sell," I said. A short pause, then a soft chuckle. "Look, no pressure. We just want what's best for you. It's a lot to maintain, and we figured why wait until it gets complicated." He spoke like someone trying to close a deal. I'd heard that voice before. Just not aimed at me. I appreciate the concern, I said. But the house stays. All right, he replied, still smooth. Just trying to help. He hung up before I could say anything else. I stood at the sink for a while, fingers resting on the edge of the counter. It wasn't just Emily. Mark, too, had drawn a line in his head, and I was now on the other side of it. An obligation. A problem to be handled. I drove to Laura's cafe without much thought. The place was half full when I arrived. She nodded from behind the counter and joined me at the corner table once she finished wiping down a tray. "You look like someone just told you your dog ran off," she said, sliding into the chair across from me. Mark called. She raised an eyebrow. I told her about the call, how smooth he was, how confident. They've already got someone lined up to sell it. Laura leaned back, crossed her arms. "They don't respect you because you never made them." That landed harder than I expected. I didn't argue, just looked past her toward the street where a teenager pushed a cart of groceries and an older woman struggled with a leash wrapped around her ankles. "They think I won't push back," I muttered. "They're right so far." She got up, brought me another coffee without asking. We didn't speak much after that. Later in the day, a white envelope showed up in the mailbox. Emily's handwriting. I opened it while standing at the kitchen counter. "Dad, we're inviting you to dinner this Sunday at our place. Just a small get-together. We'd like to discuss the future of the family property. No pressure, just a conversation. Love, Emily." I didn't like the way family property replaced your house. Sunday came, and I drove to their neighborhood long streets with trimmed hedges and houses that looked like catalog covers. Their driveway was already full, so I parked 2 blocks down and walked. Emily opened the door before I knocked. Her smile was too wide. "Dad, come in, everyone's here." The dining room shone with polish and symmetry, everything in its place, quiet music suggesting taste. Her in-laws were already seated. Mark handed me a drink I hadn't asked for. "Glad you came," he said. "Better to talk while things are calm." Dinner began with roast chicken small talk, the usual niceties. Then Emily turned to me. "Dad, we just want to help you simplify. Managing money at your age can be a lot, and honestly, it's not your strength." No one laughed, but something shifted. Her tone wasn't cruel, just condescending. "I'm doing fine," I said. "Of course, but imagine if someone handled everything for you. You could relax." I set my fork down. I know what I'm doing. The table fell still. Her father-in-law cleared his throat. Mark sipped his wine. Emily looked away. Mark changed the topic. Real estate. Something bland. It didn't matter. They'd made their point. I wasn't part of the plan anymore, just an obstacle to move quietly aside. Dinner ended with polite hugs. I stepped out the night cool and dry. Walking to my car, I looked back once. They were already laughing, stacking plates, continuing their evening like I'd never been there. I unlocked the door and sat behind the wheel, gripping it to keep from drifting too far into whatever came next. The office door gave its familiar squeak as I pushed it open. Nothing much had changed since the week after Linda died. Same paneled walls, same faint scent of old paper, and overworked air conditioning. A few new photos sat on a shelf, but the order of things remained. David Carlson looked up gray showing at his temples. "Michael," he said, standing to shake my hand. "It's been a while." "Thanks for seeing me," I replied. He gestured to the chair. "Always. What brings you in? I want to set up a foundation. A trust." He reached for a notepad. "For workers. The ones who get hurt and disappear once they're no longer useful." His pen stopped. "You're serious. I've been saving for years. Nothing fancy, but it grew." "And Emily? She's not included. You sure she's married, secure, and comfortable?" I gave her what I could. "This is for the people who kept me standing." David nodded, no argument. "All right, we'll need to reassign assets, adjust the will, and draft the foundation statement. Got a name? The Harris Fund." He wrote it down. Executor. For now me. Later someone who's known a bad back or broken hand. We worked through the details, accounts, percentages, allocations. He promised to have the papers ready by week's end. I signed what he had, shook his hand, and left. I didn't head straight home. Laura's cafe pulled me in like a habit. She was out front watering ferns along the railing. Look who decided to show up, she said, coiling the hose. I've been thinking, I told her. Dangerous, she said lightly. I'm starting a fund for guys like Mike Davis or Sam, the one who lost 2 fingers and got $2,700 for it. Laura leaned on the post, arms crossed. That's a hell of a thing. It's late, but it's something. She waited quiet as ever. There was a time I thought being quiet made me strong, I said. That not asking for credit meant dignity. She didn't interrupt. Now I think maybe I was just afraid. If I spoke up, I'd have to see what was missing. Back home, I made a sandwich I didn't finish and took it to the porch. The light was soft over the trees, the street calm. Somewhere a dog barked once, then stopped. My phone buzzed on the table. Emily. Dad, I heard you went to a lawyer. What's happening? Are you okay? Please talk to me. No greeting, no warmth, just control dressed as concern. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering. Didn't answer. Not everything needs explaining, some things just need doing. Reached for the phone again, ready to type something, but another message appeared. First, please confirm transfer of assets to Harris Foundation. 2 buttons, yes or no. No hesitation. I tapped. Yes, set the phone. Face down, stood there, with hands still wet, water slipping into the sink. Dried them, glanced around the kitchen, and opened the hallway closet. Years had passed since it was last touched. A broken cardboard box waited near the bottom, still taped from a move never finished. Winter coats, folded blankets, old boots abandoned after the knee gave out, the leather cracked across the toe. The closet held the faint smell of dust and cedar, as if time were trying to keep itself intact. Beneath a pile of magazines and a rusted radio sat a box of Emily's school papers, spelling tests, drawings, a note in crooked letters. I love you, Dad, even when you make broccoli. I smiled at it, but didn't linger. Some memories work better as a tap on the shoulder than a visit. At the bottom, under a sewing kit, waited the letter folded in thirds paper, yellowed Linda's handwriting on the front. Read only when you're alone. Sat on the floor and opened it. Michael. You carry things like they're nothing, but they leave marks. Don't let kindness become silence that harms you. Don't let peace become erasure. You've spent so much of your life giving, don't disappear in the process. I didn't cry, just closed it and held it heavier than paper should be. Placed it in the desk drawer beneath a stack of bills, changed shirts, and stood in the hallway. That evening, I stopped by Laura's cafe. She was misting the plants in the window boxes. When she saw me, she reached under the counter and handed me a folded newspaper. You made the news? She said, almost casual. Page 2. Local section retired engineer launches fund for injured workers. There was a photo of me holding a document in front of the courthouse. They didn't quote you right, Laura said, but close enough. I skimmed it. Details about the fund, the mission, nothing personal. Just the story. Faster than I expected, I said. She wiped her hands with a napkin. You okay with it being public? I didn't do it to hide. So what now? Now. Nothing, I said, sipping the coffee she'd placed in front of me. Let it do what it's meant to. When I stood to leave, I noticed a car across the street. A black sedan. It didn't move. I walked to my truck without hurrying, glanced once more, still parked. Maybe coincidence, maybe not. My hand lingered on the lock longer than usual. At home, I placed Linda's letter with the investment files. 2 messages from Emily waited on my phone. "Are you okay? Please call me." I didn't reply, just sat there, letting the day drain away breath by breath. The phone buzzed as I poured my coffee. Emily again. I let it ring twice, then answered. "Dad," she began, sharp and breathless. "What are you doing? People are calling me friends, clients, even Mark's boss. They're asking about you, about this foundation." I didn't answer right away. I moved the mug aside, kept one hand on the table. "I'm doing something I've thought about for years," I said. She scoffed. "Years? And you didn't think to talk to your daughter?" Her breath caught. "You knew we were making plans," she added. "Now it looks like you're cutting me off." "I'm not cutting anyone off," I said. "I'm giving back to the people who kept me standing when your mom passed the ones who worked double shifts and never complained." Her tone softened, just barely. "You're embarrassing me. You could have warned me." That word again. I didn't speak. She hung up first. I finished my coffee, unplugged the landline, and left my cell in the drawer. Let them call whoever they wanted. Later, I walked down to the hardware store on Pitt Street. A few nods, a few stares. Donnie from payroll asked if the paper was true. I nodded once and kept walking. Back home, I sat on the porch. It had always been a place to think, but that day it felt like the only place left to breathe. Laura pulled up before noon, another paper in her hand. "They're spinning it," she said. "Now it's about how you alienated your daughter. Quotes from someone close to the family. I didn't have to ask who." Emily never handled pride quietly. "I didn't do this for headlines," I said, "and I'm not explaining it to anyone." She sat for a while. Smoke from a nearby grill drifted down the block. Then she left the paper on the step and drove off. I didn't open it. Around 3, Mark's SUV came fast up the drive, dust trailing behind. He didn't park straight or knock. "I need a minute," he said already across the threshold. I stayed seated and motioned to the chair. He ignored it. "You're making this worse for everyone," he started. "Do you know how this looks? My colleagues think it's some family feud." "Maybe it is," I said. He blinked, surprised. "You didn't tell Emily," he went on. "She's crushed. It's disrespectful." "She'll manage," I said. "She's got you the house, the comfort. What I'm doing takes nothing from her. It's not about money. It's about family. Legacy." I stood not fast, just enough to still the room. "You want legacy, earn it. Don't rewrite mine." He didn't speak. His jaw tightened. Then he turned and left. From the porch, I watched the SUV vanish around the corner. The wind had shifted. The flag across the street hung limp. I stood there a while, feeling the dull ache in my legs, the familiar pull in my shoulder. Then I went in, reheated yesterday's chili, and ate it at the counter. The phone rang while I was at the kitchen table spreading peanut butter on toast I didn't want. Laura's call came mid-morning. Her tone was steady. "They reached out," she said. "From the old firm. They want you on the advisory board for the fund." The words landed gently like a knock that didn't need repeating. "They said you're the one who understands what it means to the workers. They trust you." I wiped the knife, set it aside. "They remember I'm still around. They remember you showed up when no one else did." That stayed with me. I hadn't asked to be included, but being seen as useful again eased something I hadn't realized was tight. I told her I'd think about it, though. I already knew the answer. A few hours later, I sent the reply, "Happy to serve if I can still be of use," then shut the computer and made tea. My hands didn't shake, but they weren't steady either. By evening, the local newsletter had it online. Michael Harris, former lead engineer at Ridgeway Plant, joins Workers' Relief Fund board. The photo was old me in a suit, still wearing my wedding ring. Messages arrived. Proud of you, Mike. Right man for the job. About time. I read them, replied to none. Let them pass like cars on a quiet road. Then I saw Emily's post. No name, but it didn't need one. Not every act of charity comes from the right place. Sometimes it's about image, not integrity. The comments piled up, some defending, some questioning. I stopped reading halfway through. Laura texted, "Don't read the comments. You did the right thing." I didn't answer. The next morning, a young VP emailed thanking me for joining. He called it an honor. That word lingered longer than it should have. By noon, Laura showed up again, newspaper tucked under her arm. They ran a full story, she said. Interviewed some of the guys from the floor. On the front page, I saw an old photo from a safety award ceremony. Emily had skipped it for a dance that night. I never mentioned it. People remember the kind of man you are, Laura said. I nodded. Didn't think it mattered anymore. It always mattered. They just forgot to say it. The paper stayed on my lap long after she left. I didn't open it again. That night, taking out the trash, I spotted the same gray sedan parked a few doors down. Engine off. No one visible. It had been there yesterday, too. Could have been nothing. Could have been Mark. Didn't matter. Locked the door, brewed coffee just for the sound of it. Across the street, a porch light flickered, then steadied. Emily's message thread still open, her last words. "You don't care how this affects us, do you?" The phone went face down on the desk. Stayed in the study past midnight. The hallway clock ticked each second, a small reminder that time kept moving even when I didn't. On the desk, an open box of photographs, edges curled, colors fading to soft yellow. Spread across the wood, Emily at 5, gap-toothed, brandishing a garden hose like a sword. Another with her on my shoulders, both of us sweating after painting the porch, her arms around my neck, my grin wide and careless. A whisper slipped out, "I'm not angry, sweetheart." The sound startled me, trembling slightly, and in that stillness it didn't carry forgiveness, only release. Picked up a pen and a half-used notebook, pages faintly scented with dust and cedar. Wrote slowly, choosing each word as if testing its weight. "You were the best thing that ever happened to me. But when you grew up, you forgot that I'm human too. I made mistakes, got tired, hurt, and you stopped seeing me as a man who tried, just a man who didn't measure up." Stopped there. Folded the page, slipped it among the photographs. Not torn, not hidden, simply placed where it belonged, beside memory rather than conversation. Morning came gray and quiet. Coffee brewed again, though flavor barely registered. The newspaper lay damp on the porch headline, visible through the thin plastic, "The Harris Fund expands." Support to laid-off workers beneath it, a smaller line. A retired engineer's quiet effort brings dignity to others. I read it standing by the counter cup, warm against my palm. A young woman from the shipyard had been quoted how the fund helped her buy her son's asthma medication. "He doesn't know the man who started it," she'd said, "but tell him we're breathing easier because of him." Folded the paper and set it aside. Something eased in my chest. Not joy, not pride, only the long breath that follows years of holding it in. The feeling lasted all of 15 minutes. At 9, the email came. From a law firm I didn't recognize. Subject line, "Notice of concern regarding fund management." The body was formal, direct. "Mr. Harris, a request for financial review has been filed by Mr. Mark Bennett on behalf of the Bennett family. The inquiry relates to the origin, distribution, and oversight of the Harris Foundation's assets." It took a moment to register Mark had filed a complaint. He wanted the fund audited, wanted me investigated. A quiet laugh slipped out, more fatigue than humor. I read the email again, slower, leaned back. The chair creaked as I pictured Mark in his office, perfect suit, expensive watch, talking about liability and transparency like he was protecting something. The irony barely stung. It almost fit. Men like him only trusted what could be controlled. Quiet acts never made sense to them. Made another pot of coffee, poured it into the chipped mug with my old company's faded logo. A purple line still cut across the handle, Emily's marker from years ago. A truck rattled past. Somewhere a dog barked. The world carried on, indifferent. Light shifted across the floorboards. The morning felt heavier, honest in its own way. By noon, Laura called. "Did you see the news about the article?" "No, the complaint. It's all over town. They're saying your son-in-law's going after you." I let the line breathe. She sighed. "You don't deserve this." "Maybe not," I said. "But I've lived through worse. You want me to come by? No, I'm fine." When the call ended, the printed notice joined old letters and thank yous in the drawer. Not proof, just part of the story. The day drifted. Lunch was toast, half an apple, a few almonds. Turned the phone off. Let the quiet settle. Evening found me at the desk again. The photos still lay there. Picked one up, Emily on my shoulders, both of us squinting into sunlight, and smiled, not for sweetness, but for truth. For years that had been enough. The lawyers were punctual. 3 across the table, measured voices, every word practiced. If they move forward with a lawsuit one began, you could lose management of the fund, but the foundation itself will remain intact. Assets secure. I nodded. That's enough. Another leaned in. "Mr. Harris, you've built something meaningful. Stepping back might look like an admission." "I don't need to run it," I said. "I just needed it to exist." They exchanged glances, probably thinking I didn't understand what was at stake. But I did. I'd spent most of my life watching men argue over control while the real work sat waiting. I wasn't going to be one of them. The meeting ended quietly. Papers signed, hands shaken. As I stepped out, a young associate, maybe 30, stopped me. "My dad worked under you at Ridgeway," he said. "He always called you fair." I thanked him and left. The afternoon carried a heavy stillness, clouds hanging low, like they couldn't decide what to do. Instead of going home, I drove toward Mount Pleasant. Carl Mason's small house sat near the edge of town. He opened the door slowly, cane in hand, grin unchanged. "Well, I'll be damned, Mike Harris at my door. Still kicking," I told him. Came to check in. The room smelled faintly of oil and toast. A pile of bills rested half-buried under the paper. "I got your letter," he said. "The check came last week. You don't know what that meant. Only what should have been done years ago." He shook his head. "You gave me my house back, my life back. If it weren't for you, I'd still be begging those insurance bastards to pick up the phone." His rough hand gripped mine, eyes, wet but steady. "You may not think it, Mike, but you're the only hero we had." Words didn't fit moments like that. I nodded, told him to keep in touch, and left. The drive home was long quiet. The porch light flickered once before settling. Coat hung, shoes off. I sat still for a while, the kind of stillness that feels like rest, not retreat. The phone rang near 6. Laura's name flashed. "Mike," she said, voice tight. "Emily's holding a press conference. They're streaming it. Why? She says she wants to clear up rumors about the fund. Whose truth is she clearing? Just turn on the TV." One button, and there she was, my daughter standing behind microphones. Mark beside her backdrop, reading Bennett family statement. Eyes red, makeup smudged. For a second, she looked like that little girl on my shoulders again. Then she spoke. "My father has always been kind," she began, "but lately he's been misled by people who don't have his best interests at heart. I'm worried for him. He's not well." She paused, dabbed a tear. "I love my father. I just want to protect him." Reporters leaned in. Cameras clicked. "Do you believe he's being exploited?" someone asked. Her nod was small, practiced. "He's not the man he used to be." The room murmured its sympathy. Laura stayed quiet on the line. "Don't let this." "I'm fine," I said, though I wasn't sure. The segment ended with her stepping away, Mark's hand on her back like punctuation. By morning, the noise had teeth. Every paper, every broadcast repeated her words, my name tied to unstable, confused, manipulated. The photo they chose was from the retirement banquet, sunlight in my eyes, expression worn. Out of context, it played their story well. People always trust polish. Emily had that measured tone, the grace that money teaches. I didn't blame her for using it, just wished she'd saved a little of that grace for me. I stayed home all day, curtains half drawn. The phone rang until I unplugged it. I scrolled through articles until the words blurred. Retired engineer questioned. Family in turmoil. Daughter seeks justice for aging father. Each headline folded me smaller. Near noon, Laura came without calling, same habit she had when my wife was alive. She set a paper bag on the counter, watched for a moment before speaking. "You've seen the coverage. Hard to miss. They're painting a picture that isn't yours." "I know." "Then don't let them finish it," she said, unpacking a container of soup. "You've got every right to hurt, but don't hand them the ending. Let the truth stand, not silence." Her words stayed after she left. The kitchen smelled faintly of thyme, untouched soup cooling on the counter. Thoughts circled how many times others had narrated my life, bosses, my daughter, strangers, now with headlines. Silence had started speaking for me. By evening, the desk lamp burned steady. The old computer hummed awake. Opened a blank document, no statement, no defense, just record. Typed each account receipt and transaction stretching back decades. Savings from every contract, small pension, returns the sale of the cabin after Linda passed. Scanned, labeled, filed. Hours slipped by, numbers blurring, but the work stayed clear. For every rumor, a fact. For every accusation, a date. No emotion, only proof. Saved the file, attached it to an email from my lawyer, the board, and the clerk. Subject line: complete financial record, Harris Foundation. Read once more, then hit send. The small confirmation blinked like a door closing softly. The house felt lighter. Shut down the computer, rubbed my eyes, and stepped onto the porch. Night lay mild, summer fading at the edges. A cricket started up somewhere nearby, steady, patient, unafraid. Leaning on the railing, breath evened out. What rose in my chest wasn't grief, but the ache of years carrying weight I no longer needed. This time the tears came freely, no shame in them. Linda's words returned. "Don't let kindness turn into silence that harms you." Now they made sense. Truth didn't mean shouting. It meant standing still and owning what was real. A week later, the phone rang just after breakfast. "Mr. Harris, it's done," my lawyer said, brisk, almost stunned. "The court reviewed everything. The fund's status is validated. They've ordered a public correction. Technically, you've won." The spoon rested against my coffee cup, trembling slightly. He cleared his throat. "They'll have to issue an apology, Emily's side included." "That's not necessary," I said. "I don't need an apology. I just want them to stop." A pause followed, softer this time. "You understand this makes you something of a public figure now." "I understand," I said. "That's what worries me." He laughed lightly, unsure if he should. "Well, congratulations anyway." After he hung up, the house grew quiet again. The phone rested on the table. The hum of the refrigerator filled the gap. Somewhere a dog barked twice, then stopped. Near noon, Laura arrived unannounced, a paper bag in hand. She set it on the counter and studied me before speaking. "You've seen the coverage. Hard to miss. They're painting a story that isn't yours." "I know." "Then don't let them finish it," she said, pulling out soup containers. "You have a right to hurt, but don't hand them the ending. Let the truth stand. When she left, the smell of time lingered. The soup cooled untouched. I sat there realizing how long I'd let others narrate my life, bosses, family, now strangers with headlines. Silence had started speaking for me. The lamp glowed over the desk. The old computer hummed to life. A blank document opened no defense, just record. Typed every account receipt and transaction savings from contracts, pension returns, proceeds from selling the cabin. Scanned, labeled, filed. For every rumor, a fact. For every accusation, a date. Attached the file to an email from my lawyer, the board, and the court. Subject: complete financial record, Harris Foundation. One glance, then send. The confirmation blinked, a quiet door closing. The house felt lighter. On the porch, night carried a trace of summer. Somewhere a cricket kept its rhythm. Leaning on the railing, an ache rose in my chest. Not grief, just release after years held too tightly. Tears came soft, unashamed. Linda's words returned. Don't let kindness turn into silence that harms you. They finally made sense. Truth didn't need volume, only steadiness. A knock broke the quiet, slow, uncertain, like someone unsure they belonged. At the door stood Emily, both hands clutching a thick envelope, shoulders drawn tight against a chill that wasn't there. I want to talk, she said, voice smaller than I remembered. I stepped aside, motioned her in. She hesitated, eyes flicking towards the hallway, as if expecting ghosts. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the same one where she once fell asleep over math homework while I checked her answers. Between us, only the faint ticking of the clock. Neither of us spoke. I poured tea out of habit, unsure she'd drink it. Steam rose, then faded. I was wrong, she said finally. Her eyes flicked toward me, then away. You don't know what it felt like, everyone calling, asking questions. I panicked. Maybe I don't, I said. But you turned your fear into someone else's shame. Her jaw tightened. The tears came, but she didn't hide them. I didn't move. Some moments weigh more in silence than in forgiveness. I told myself I was protecting you, she murmured. Really, I was protecting the person I wanted to be. The kettle clicked behind us, heat fading from the air. She slid an envelope across the table. The house papers, she said. I don't want them. They belong with you. The paper was damp near the corner. Maybe her hands, maybe the weather. You don't have to. I do, she interrupted. I need to know something between us isn't broken for good. Her eyes searched mine. The girl I remembered was still there, smaller, tired, but present. We sat with that quiet. The clock marked seconds. Sunlight stretched and thinned across the floor. Mom would have hated what I did, she whispered. She'd have loved that you came back. That was all. No speeches, no gestures, just the weight of what couldn't be fixed, and the fragile part that still could. She stood, paused, as if words hovered behind her, then left. The door clicked shut, soft but final. Months passed and the world steadied. The foundation ran smoothly. Families helped hospitals, sending thanks photos of volunteers with people I'd never met. My name still appeared in reports, though it meant less each time. That was how it should be. I only attended the larger meetings. Ellen, the new director, managed the rest, young, steady, no need for speeches. When she spoke, people listened. During one meeting, a journalist waited until we finished before asking Mr. Harris, how does it feel to be seen as a symbol of fairness? The room stilled. Eyes turned to me, expecting something quotable. I'm just a man who stayed quiet too long, I said. He looked puzzled, maybe disappointed. People prefer tidy stories. Ellen smiled afterward. You could have played that up, you'd sound like a philosopher. I've had enough of being quoted. Then we'll let the work speak, she said. Later, Laura and I went over the quarterly report. "We've doubled outreach," she said. "Over 300 workers helped this quarter. The numbers spoke for themselves." "You see," she went on, "everything you went through, it wasn't for nothing." "It wasn't," I said. "You ever think about writing your side? I already did. Just not in words. You really don't care if people forget your name. I hope they do. Then the work will stand." She closed the folder, hand resting on it. "You did the right thing even when no one saw. Maybe that's the only time it matters." The quiet returned, comfortable this time. Weeks passed. Emily left her husband's firm, moved to a smaller city, started teaching basic engineering to high school kids. A friend told me. No headlines followed. That silence felt right. The press moved on. No more questions, no more photos. Just the rhythm of things working as they should. One morning, Laura dropped the final report beside my tea. "The numbers are strong," she said. "You've built something that's saving lives. That must mean something." "It does," I said, "but the value isn't in the money." She raised an eyebrow. "Then we're in knowing I'm not afraid anymore." Her smile was quiet, proud. "That's worth more than most things." When the meeting ended, I stepped outside. The sun hung low, brushing everything with early autumn calm. Leaves carried that dry scent that comes before change. Walking down the steps, I watched people heading home, some in suits, some in uniforms, some carrying groceries. A few nodded in recognition, polite, distant. I nodded back. For once, there was nothing to fix or defend. Just the rhythm of walking steady, unhurried through a world that owed me nothing. At the corner, a breeze stirred a few leaves across the pavement. They spun once, then settled quiet, unremarkable, doing what they were meant to do. I adjusted my jacket and kept walking, blending into the flow of ordinary life. Morning came slow and clear, the kind of autumn day that doesn't ask much of anyone. Woke early, out of habit, more than purpose. The house held a faint chill enough to make the first step from bed sharp. Made coffee, listened to the familiar hum and drip filling the pot. The smell spread through the kitchen, simple grounding. The coffee was ready. Carried a cup to the porch, pushed the screen door open. The hinges groaned softly like an old friend stirring awake. Cool air held the scent of damp leaves. Birds called from somewhere in the trees. Across the street, a sprinkler clicked in its steady rhythm. Ordinary sounds, but they filled the morning in a way I hadn't noticed for years. The newspaper lay on the table, elections, weather, the county fair. Not a single line about me, the foundation, or the noise of the past year. The quiet of my absence felt right. A car pulled into the driveway. I didn't have to look. Laura's timing always landed between chance and certainty. She stepped out, holding a foil-covered plate. "Apple pie," she said. "Still warm. Breakfast of champions," I told her, motioning to the chair. She sat, placed the plate between us. The crust had cracked just enough for cinnamon to escape. She poured coffee from her thermos, leaned back, and crossed her legs. We didn't talk. The river shimmered beyond the thinning trees, light drifting over the surface, slow and calm. A few leaves fell, floated briefly, then sank. "It feels different here," she said. Quieter. "It is. Maybe you're finally resting." "Not resting," I said. "Just stopped running." She smiled. "Close enough." The quiet that followed was easy. She broke off a piece of pie, handed it over. "Eat before it cools." The crust was soft, uneven, honest. "You still bake the same way? That's because I still live the same way." We both laughed quietly. The breeze lifted a strand of her hair. She tucked it behind her ear. "You ever miss the old days?" she asked. "Sometimes. Not the chaos, just the rhythm of being needed." You're still needed. Maybe. But it's a quieter kind of need now. Her gaze followed a small boat gliding along the far side of the river. You did something good, Michael. I didn't fix the world, I said. Just stopped letting it use me to stay broken. She smiled like she wanted to keep the words. You sound lighter. Maybe I am. The sun climbed, warming the porch boards. Down the street a dog barked. A mail truck rattled past. Life doing what it always does, moving forward, unaware of the quiet revolutions inside the people watching it. The last sip of coffee had gone bitter, the kind that feels honest. Laura checked her watch. You staying in town this winter? I think so. The house feels right again. That's good, she said. You deserve right. We let silence settle again, closure without ceremony. She stood, patted my shoulder. Don't forget those plants. They look about done. They'll manage, I said. She waved once, left the pie on the table, and drove off. I stayed watching until the sound of her car disappeared, then turned toward the river. Light scattered across the surface, breaking into small reflections that vanished as quickly as they formed. Lifted the empty mug, held it between my palms for warmth. The taste lingered bitter soft at the edges, like something that had finally learned not to hurt. And that was enough.